All right, guys, let's dig into the news, the effed up news that I didn't cover this week already. Let's see. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of stories pulled up here, and we're just going to kind of go through them one by one. The first one is more of just like a clarification because Bill Cassidy, Senator Bill Cassidy, MD, was tweeting yesterday about the budget bill. And let us not forget, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong about this, but didn't Senator Bill Cassidy also vote to remove Trump from office in impeachment? Is this the same guy? Because he was tweeting nonsense yesterday about the budget bill. And of course, I honed in on one specific tweet, which he says third, critical race theory is not in, or not the budget, the infrastructure bill. Infrastructure. There it is. Everything is infrastructure. He was tweeting about the infrastructure bill, and he says critical race theory is not in this bill, never has been. Equity is not a catchphrase for CRT. Language in this bill does not change current anti-discrimination laws at all. So, guys, pop quiz for the chat. Why is Senator Bill Cassidy full of shit? You guys have it on the screen right in front of you. It's right there. It's not even not even really a quiz. It's like, this is like an open book quiz. In the chat, why is Senator Bill Cassidy full of shit when he says that critical race theory is not in the infrastructure bill? Nat D says, best news this week was comic shop Star Wars vet. I have no idea what that is, but I will take your word for it. I don't know. Well, I'll explain to you why I think he's full of shit. Because critical race theory and equity have exactly the same goal. Exactly. Yes. Dragon Water said equity is the goal of critical race theory. You cannot, one does not exist without the other. And so for him to say that equity and he is technically correct, right? This is like he's obfuscating like a Democrat, isn't he? Like, he is technically correct that the definition of equity and the definition of critical race theory are not the same thing, but the goal is the same. So what I'm going to recommend you guys do is start thinking, and listen, man, I'm not like James Lindsay. I'm not giving you the academic definitions of stuff. I'm going to talk about brass tacks, how things manifest in the real world, what they mean when they're practically applied. Critical race theory in practice. James Lindsay might say critical race theory in praxis. I don't care. However you want to call it, but we need to start thinking about some terms as being interchangeable because effectively they do really manifest as like the same dang thing. So critical race theory, anti-racism, equity, they're all the same. They're all too deeply intertwined with each other to have any meaningful difference insofar as how we are experiencing it. Janice Zeal says, because equity is now known as CRT code. Yeah, that's another thing right there. Equity definitely, like, they like to change language. They like to play with language to make sure that you are confused. Nat D in the chat is pointing out Ben Shapiro on Bill Maher was great. I have to say, he really was. He gave a really, really, really good definition of critical race theory. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it and see if I maybe want to update or integrate his into mine, because I thought what he did was really, really good. You got to give credit where credit is due. Ben Shapiro did a good job on Bill Maher of explaining what critical race theory is. Maybe someone can send that clip to Tim Pool, please. Maybe someone can make sure Tim Pool watches that clip and memorizes it or something. Dragon Water said, I would argue equity is actually the goal of feminism as well. I mean, yeah, like critical theory is involved in that as well. So listen, the goal of critical race theory or anti-racism is to reduce or eliminate disparities in outcomes based on different racial categories. Ibram X. Kendi says this, right? If any difference in the outcomes or disparities in outcomes across different racial categories is racism, right? Equity is about equality of outcomes. It's about making sure everyone has the same outcome. So, if you are reducing the amount of disparities based entirely on race, then your goal is to have equal outcomes. It is the same flipping thing. It is the same thing. So Senator Bill Cassidy does not know what he's talking about, and anyone who lives in Senator Bill Cassidy's state, I believe it's Louisiana, isn't it like Louisiana or something like that? Might be Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana. Please send him an email and tell him that it's a saying dang thing and he needs to stop lying to his constituents, because if equity is in the infrastructure bill, that means critical race theory is in the infrastructure bill. And I do also believe that if I click into this here tweet, We also have James Lindsay and Chris Rufo taking him to task. Let's see what Chris Rufo's got underlined here from said infrastructure bill. Race and gender neutral efforts alone are insufficient to address the problem. That's critical race theory. To encourage women to enter the field of trucking. I never had an interest in trucking myself, although I have to admit that it might be fun to drive a big, powerful machine. But, you never know. And then digital equity, digital inclusion. And then we've got James Lindsay piping in somewhere saying, looks like critical race theory is in fact in the bill. First image is literally their foundational beliefs. Race consciousness is necessary? Really? So Bill Cassidy is full of it. He is not correct. He is lying to his constituents. And they should probably let him know that. All right, Andrea says there is a bunch of authoritarian BS in the infrastructure bill. Not much about infrastructure. In an infrastructure bill, go figure. Well, I thought everything was about infrastructure. I thought everything was infrastructure. Kieran says we're all mother truckers here. If only that were true. If only, Kieran.